Okay. All right, here comes the countdown. What's going on, everybody? We are giving away some books tonight, wherever they went. They're somewhere here. All you got to do is drop a comment in the chat, and you will be entered to win. Oh yeah, Donna, we're doing a giveaway tonight.
I assumed we would.
There's the wheel. I don't see any names on it yet.
Got Sober Tribe Vibe and Barb in the house. Hello, everyone.
On the wheel they go. We can hear Matt drinking his fancy canned beverage in the background. Say what's up, Matt. Everybody's watching. Everybody's listening. Everybody can hear you drinking.
Oh, lucky me.
Oh, we've got Josh and Andy. Get him on. You got him? All right, I'm going to ask for every single time. Have you got Lee on the wheel? What's up, Jill? Thanks for the comment. Steven, Josh, thank you all for the comments. Let us know where you're coming in from. We like to know how far we're reaching. Here's the books. Oh, I always miss the main camera. Here's the books. We're giving away some books tonight.
What books you got there, Dan?
We got, say, Goodbye Stress, Hello Life by the man, the myth, the legend, Alan Kaler. And
nice.
Stepping Out from the Shadows by the same guy, the most interesting author in the world. Well, the most interesting author in my world.
In Saskatoon. He's a good Saskatoon boy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. What's up, Jill? Jill's in Saskatoon. Jill's on the wheel to win some books, and so is Stefan and Tina. I feel like the Romper Room. Remember Romper Room? I get the mirror.
I sure do.
I'm dating myself here, but I'm like, I see Stefan and I see Jill and I see...
I thought you said no one's going to watch this, so we can just talk about anything we want.
Yeah, psych. Everyone's watching. Oh, and we've got Jody Oakes. I think Jody Oakes is in Regina. It's been a while since I've seen your name in the chat there, Jody. Good to see you again. Romper Room. Yes, Lee remembers. He's old like us.
I'm getting a Chris Shepard's Pirate Radio vibe going on here.
Are you? That's cool. It's not even Friday night. Oh, Jody Oakes is in Moose Jaw. And we've got Nicole. Thank you guys so much for the comments. I've decided that we're going to give away something every single week. You know, we've come to a place now where Facebook is actually we're not getting Facebook rich or anything, but we are making a little bit, and I've decided that we're going to put some of that into making sure that we've got something to give away every show. So either we'll get more books donated by Al, or I think we've got some actually coming from Joe Roberts too. Joe said he was going to give some books, or we'll give a t-shirt away or something just to say thanks for being amazing.
Are you Facebook famous now, Dan?
No. Well, no.
Yeah, you are.
I mean, compared to you, I am, but...
To me, you are, yeah. No one can even find me on social media.
I don't even think you're on Facebook, so, I mean, it's really not, I like to...
I'm there. I'm there. I'm creeping on you, and you just don't know it.
Really? Well, I could feel something. I didn't know it was you. What's up, Crystal? Good to see ya. Hey, if you guys are just tuning in, please share this stream with your community. You never know who might need to hear this tonight. Matt is going to regale us with tales of being a drug cop on the mean streets of Saskatoon.
Oh, God.
Yes. I did say psych, Renee. Yes, I did say psych. Everyone's watching. I told Matt before the show, I'm like, man, don't get too stressed out. I mean, our live viewership isn't super duper big. Most of our views come after. So, but then a whole bunch of people showed up. So
Cool.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we're not talking hundreds of people. I think we've got like 20?
I don't have my phone, so I can't tell you at this moment, but I'm going to run and get my phone once I get these names on the wheel.
Yes. Oh, right on. I would love to have a beaded lanyard, Lee. That would be amazing. That will definitely make it into the show. If you send that to me, I'll definitely make sure that makes it into the studio here somewhere. That'd be awesome. Thanks, man. Dan is Facebook famous. I mean, like, compared to who, though? I mean, fame, like, can be a relative thing, you know?
Well, you've
Crystal
definitely
says-
got the kindest.
It can?
You definitely got the kindest Facebook followers.
Yeah. Well, maybe, like, there's a whole bunch of mean ones that are just like, I'm not commenting. Hey,
So-
if you're just joining us now, drop us a comment in the chat and we will put your name on that wheel. We've got a couple of books we're giving away here tonight. So if you want to win a couple of self-help books by the man Alan Kaler, just drop us a comment and give the stream a like and you're on the wheel.
So do explain how being famous is subjective.
Well, I mean, like, I'm not famous to, like, compared to Eminem, but, like, I might be famous compared to, like, other people that aren't. I don't know. What do you? Get out of my head right now. Hey, Kathy. I'm going to talk to Kathy now. Kathy. Get Kathy's name on the wheel. That's my answer to that question.
Kathy's name is on the wheel.
Yeah. Hey, if you guys love what we're doing here, you can find all our audios, like all of the audios from our lives. Like, we edit them and we throw them on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can listen to it. If you don't have time to sit down for an hour and watch us, you can just, like, throw on an episode, when you're doing stuff at home or driving to work or chasing bad guys down Circle Drive like Matt likes to do.
That's not anymore.
Well, you'd still like to do that, though, I bet.
That's true. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true.
And you would listen to Hard Knocks Talks while you were doing it, right?
Oh, definitely. It's all I listen
Hardcore.
to, actually. Just on
Goddamn
repeat
hardcore.
all the time.
All day
24
long.
hours a day.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks.
Attaboy. Yeah, I would too.
Great for gym workouts.
Dan's voice is so annoying. You tell him, Donna. You tell him. Lee is saying provincial-wide famous. I work at Susan Ulmer's, and there's a few of us that have listened to Hard Knocks Talks. Yes.
Look at that.
Oh, I know Michael. Michael Thor. I do know Michael, actually. Right on. Okay, anybody who's just tuning in, drop us a comment in the chat. Get your name on that wheel to win a couple of self-help books here. Here they are, right here, by Mr. Man Alan Kaler. They're coming at you. Both of these are going to one person tonight. Get your name on the wheel, drop a comment. That's all you gotta do. We're spinning the wheel at the end of the show. After I say good night, everybody, don't leave, because we'll come back on the screen and we'll give them these books away. Quinn, what's going on, man? Quinn just crossed over 200,000 followers on Facebook here. Give that man a follow.
Yeah.
The man knows how to make a reel, I'll tell you that. And he knows how to smoke marijuana in a therapeutic capacity. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Quinn's on the wheel? Quinn is on the wheel. We call it the Wheel of Lessons, and do you know why we call it that? We call it that because there will be only one winner, and that person will win gratitude, the rest will lose and learn acceptance. Oh, the Wheel of Lessons. You never disappoint.
I've learned so much already, Dan. This is an amazing podcast and show you got going on here.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that from a fellow podcaster.
Former podcaster.
Former podcast. You'll always be a podcaster in my eye. You have, you know what? I'm going to say this out loud right now. You have the copyist, like the cop-iest named podcast in the world. Like, you know a cop made that podcast. Say no.
KNOW, yeah.
I know. Still, the first time I heard that, I'm like, no way. And then I saw how it was spelled,
That was the point.
I'm like, that tricky guy.
Yeah, that was the point.
Yeah. Okay, quiet on set. 5 seconds to go. It's go time. Let's do it.
I've been a cop in Saskatoon for 17 years. The vast majority of my career is sort of having something to do with the drugs and organized crime section. I started handling informants, patrolling the core neighborhoods in Saskatoon, buying drugs off the street, kicking in the doors of drug houses when I was in our gang unit. The most violent crime that's going on in our city. It all seems to tie back to the way we're dealing with drugs.
What's going on, everybody? That was tonight's guest, Matt Ingrouille. My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory, and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Let's bring in Matt. Well, hey there, buddy.
Camera one. Hey,
Yes.
Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I like how you were like.
Yeah, I was thinking camera one, camera two.
Yeah,
Had a little
don't.
wings
I
rolled
forgot
on
to
there.
tell you. I forgot to tell you. Don't look at the second camera. Forget it's there. Forget it's there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
It's gone. It's gone
Yeah.
from my mind.
All gone. All gone. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. I know that you're a busy guy, so I appreciate it very much. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started tonight?
Just, you know what, Dan, thanks a lot for having me. For those of you that don't know, I had a podcast for a little while a few years ago. I had to shut it down for some family emergencies, and I waited. There was a big guilt in my heart when I had to let it go, because I knew that the community needed somebody, sharing these types of stories. And Dan, when you popped up, I have to say that was a weight off my back, and you were giving the community and people something they need. So big thanks to what you're doing here, man.
Thank you so much, man, and I appreciate you saying that. And I truly love what I do, and I am very much at home in this community and this studio that's coming up around me. So it's in good hands, man. Like, I'm doing my best here. Donna and I, we're just out here like a couple of cowboys. All right. Well, I guess without further ado, let's hit it.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
Okay, before we dive in, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is title sponsored by Prairie Harm Reduction. Improving quality of life for everyone starts at the local level. Prairie Harm Reduction upholds gold standards of harm reduction that are recognized nationally. Every day they prove harm reduction works. To learn more and make a donation to their safe consumption site, check out www.prairiehr.ca. Giant shout out to them.
Oh,
So-
huge shout out to them.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Like, just before we jump in, let's talk just for a sec about Prairie Harm Reduction. It seems like the public at large only recognizes them as the safe consumption site. Like, that's the big shiny thing that everyone has heard about, right? They have 120 employees. Like, they're doing so much more than their safe consumption site. It's incredible, man. Like, helping people get housed, helping people access services. It's incredible. So,
Yep,
Yeah.
the youth homes they just opened up.
Mhm.
Yeah, lots going on with that organization. The safe consumption site's really the smallest part of what it is.
mm-hmm.
I'd like to point out their intense family outreach as well. They helped
Mhm.
me like beyond explanation early in my recovery journey. So always a place in my heart for those guys.
Oh, that's great to hear, Donna. I'm on the board of PHR and have been for a few years, and it's awesome, an awesome place to contribute some time.
Yeah. So let's jump in then. Tell us a little bit about how you got into undercover work.
Well, Dan, I am a cop, so I'm a bit of a stickler for details there. And your edit of of the intro video makes it seem like for 17 years that's the work that I've been doing, and it's not exactly the case. I got into that section pretty early on in my career. I'd only had a couple years of policing experience, and then found myself working in our drug unit, and it was called Integrated Organized Crime Unit for a little while. It's had a few different name changes and things, but so yeah, I was a pretty young cop when I was in that section, which was great because I was eager to learn, and that's what I did. And then from there, I went back to the street patrolling our central neighborhood for a few years, and then I went into our gang unit for almost 5. there, and then right now I'm a sergeant in our serious assault unit. So we take all of the violent crimes, mostly aggravated assaults, attempted murders. If the victim doesn't succumb to their injuries, then those are the files that we have. And unfortunately, we live in a pretty violent place, so we're a busy office.
So at what point in the services you just mentioned, that like all the experiences you've had, at what point did you start to realize that the justice system was failing the people that you were interacting with?
Um, oh boy, I think almost every recruit trainer tells their recruit it's best if you just don't look at what the outcome was on the charges that you laid. And I was told that pretty early on in my career. And it's a tough place, and I think a lot of people have an expectation of the justice system that isn't what its actual purpose is. Like I you know I, it's rare that everyone in the room's leaving happy, put it that way, no matter what side of the fence you're on. And so the system itself, I mean, I'm sure it's doing a lot better here than it is in a lot of other countries. But like every system, we always have to be working on them, always working to improve. Um, and it's not even just the system. Like, I had a file. Do you mind if I tell a bit of a story, or
Yeah, sure.
a
Go
bit of a
ahead.
case down? If that, I think this might sort of put into scope when I'm talking about the justice system. I'm not talking about exactly what's just going on in the courtroom, right? Justice is made up of a whole lot of things. And I had a file a few years ago. I'm going to call this person Chantel. That's not a real name, obviously. It's fine if I was to give their real identity because it's all gone through court, but just out of respect, I won't. Chantel was dating a local gang member, fairly high ranking. Let's call him Mike. Um, I met Chantel because we had executed a search warrant. We'd heard that this dude had a bunch of guns. So we kicked in the door there, and sure enough, there's a bunch of guns. But then I also met Chantel. And as what happens in a lot of gang houses, you kick in the door, and the big tough gangsters jump out the back window and leave whoever's inside with kind of the stash. And that's what happened here. Is that Chantel was sitting on the bag of guns. So anyways, we arrested him as well, and we arrested her. Got Chantel to the station, and as I was interviewing her, I could just tell, you could feel it in your gut, like there's just something a little different with this scenario. Like, this isn't just your cut and dry, gang members having guns to, continue on their business. There was something else. And so I ended up taking her aside and basically convincing her to, I can tell you're holding on to something, like, tell me what it is. And she eventually gave us a full statement, and she detailed this just horrific night of horror. She was in a domestic violent relationship with a significant other, and these guns were there actually to protect herself from him. And she detailed this night that happened it was a New Year's Day a couple of years ago. She was getting herself out of this lifestyle, and she was at her friend's house. Mike showed up with a shotgun, pulled her out of her friend's house, put her in the back of this car. He had a driver in the car. He was in the back. He drove around, beating the shit out of her with the butt end of this shotgun, beat her unconscious. He was quoted saying, "We're going to Neil Stonechild this bitch." Started driving out of town, kept beating her. She's drifting in and out of consciousness. She thinks she's going to be killed. The driver gets cold feet, realizing, like, holy shit, this is
Getting real.
he's serious. Like, yeah, this is real. He's gonna actually kill this. He's gonna kill his girlfriend here. And so the driver gets cold feet and starts driving back into town, and ends up around Avenue T, and then they were stopped for a period of time. Chantel's able to break out of the car. The police receive a 911 call around this time about somebody getting curb stomped, a male getting curb stomped outside of a vehicle. That was obviously not a male, that was Chantel. Cops responded to the area, and that made Mike and his driver take off. And so now we have Chantal laying on the ground. She's been beaten to a pulp. She's drifting out of consciousness. It was like colder than -30 that day. It might have been one of those -50 with the wind chill. She's in t-shirt, jeans type of thing. So she starts crawling to the first house she sees. She can't get inside. She ends up, police are looking around for her, right? Patrol's responding, looking for this person getting curb stomped. They clear it GOA, meaning gone on arrival. Like there was no evidence that they could find of anybody. Meanwhile, poor Chantal is still drifting in and out of consciousness, kind of crawling through the alleyways, trying not to freeze to death. And she makes it to the back of St. Paul's Hospital. And this story is like heartbreaking in so many ways, because it just shows, well, I'll let you draw your own conclusions. So she makes it to the back of St. Paul's Hospital. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time, and until I heard this story and Chantal giving this statement, I was like, well, why didn't you just go in the hospital? Well, you can't get into the hospital from all sides, right? You can only get in from the front door. And so as a walk up. And so she's at the back. A driver of some sort of like delivery vehicle or something pulled up. She's banging on the windows and she's in tears. When she told me this story, not story, I should say, when she told me this real life account that happened to her, she had never told anyone this before, and she relived this in the interview room. Like she relived this moment probably to the most I've ever seen.
How is that for you? Just take a minute here. Like, for you as a service provider, how is it being in spaces like that when people are sharing things like that and re-experiencing trauma like that? Like, how does that sit with you?
It's a strange it's strange is the best way to describe it, because you're feeling a lot of feelings all at the same time. Like you're excited that someone has made this disclosure to you and we might be able to actually help this person. You feel empathetic towards what they were going through. The cop in your mind is thinking, oh, there might be a bad guy who's responsible for this. Let's go fucking find him. You know, like there's just like a mash of things. It's interesting for sure. So anyway, she's reliving this. She's at the back of St. Paul's Hospital. She's banging on the door of the delivery driver, and she says to me, I don't even blame them. They were just looking straight ahead, refusing to even turn their head to look sideways and make eye contact with her. And she's like, and her exact words were, and I don't blame that driver either, because I look like a crazy meth head lunatic that might be there to hurt them. But she's covered in blood. So anyway, she's thinking she's going to freeze to death. She starts walking around. Two patrol car ends up pulling up. Two people get out, pull up the side, or they roll down their window, and they're just like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, get in. And she's been through so much. She just starts basically yelling at them, just, I need to go to the hospital. I need to go to the hospital. Take me to the hospital. So like, okay, so they get her in, and they're trying to ask her, like, what happened? Like, what's going on? Whatever. But she's just in such a state of trauma and like near death. I don't think they realized. I pulled their in-car camera, and there's no way that they realized the physical state that she was actually in. She was probably presenting a lot better than what she was actually going through based on the injuries that she sustained. So they end up dropping her off at the hospital, and in she goes, and she ends up having a fractured skull. She had a bunch of other injuries to her face and nose and whatnot, and so this is the story. So this is kind of what had happened to her. And then I get this information from her, and now it's time to start the investigation, right? And it's kind of hard to start gathering evidence of something that happened so long ago, but her story was so compelling and it had so much detail. My objective then became, if I can sort of find little pieces in her story that I can corroborate, if she was telling the truth about those, maybe I'd be able to present it that she's clearly telling the truth about it all. We also did a KGB statement, which means it was done under oath. So that's supposed to be as good as swearing. So she swore it to another police officer. It's supposed to be equivalent to sort of testifying on the stand. It's a higher level of truth. There's criminal consequences if you're caught lying on one of these statements. So we had all of our ducks in a row. My buddy Aaron Smith and I really took this investigation on when we were in the gang unit. And one of the things that ended up happening is she started getting issued a bunch of threats from Mike, like tons of threats. At one point, her house got shot up out on her mom's house got shot up on their reserve where she was staying. The RCMP responded, dealt with that stuff. She's terrified. We end up finding and arresting Mike and charging him with this aggravated assault on her. Now the justice system starts, right? Well, I shouldn't say it starts. The justice system's already begun, but now a different investigation starts. He still starts threatening her.
To this point, it doesn't really sound like there was any misconduct by any of the service providers involved. Like it sounds all right to me now.
Yeah. And so he's still threatening her and stuff, and through other gang members. So I write some warrants and get his phone calls from jail. Sure enough, we find he's making threats. He's telling other people to threaten her. If she shows up for court, he's going to kill her and all this shit. And so I'm talking to both her and her mom like regularly. Her mom's just awesome, big support, and she's just like she's scared that they're going to be killed over this. Like, it's okay, like he's in jail, like it's all good. So then now it's time for the preliminary inquiry. So most of the time what happens when someone's charged with an offense, the first time the cops and people show up to court is for what's called a preliminary inquiry. So it's basically the justice system or the court system's testing to see if you have enough evidence to take this thing to trial, right? And so we're at the prelim, and right as I'm walking in, the prosecutor goes, "Hey, Matt, I forgot to mention to you, you can't talk about any of the threats that he made." And we charged him with the threats that he was making after the fact, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I can't talk about the threats." And he's like, "Well, that's prejudicial to the accused because it's kind of like him admitting guilt." I'm like, "Well, isn't that a good thing?" But he's like, "Well, no, it would be considered prejudicial, so we can only talk about the assault that happened on her." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Where is she?" It's like, "Man, she's not showing up. She called me before we got here. She's like, if I show up for court, he's gonna kill me." She wasn't like a hostile witness where she's just like, "Fuck this, I'm not showing up." She legitimately thought she was gonna be killed if she showed up, and had evidence of the fact that this is legit, or else got shot up at one time.
Yeah.
And but you know what? She sent her mom there. So her mom's there with me. And her mom I introduced to the prosecutor. I'm like, "Look, she's not here not because she doesn't want to be, because she legitimately thinks she will be hurt if she comes." And I said, "Plus we did a KGB statement. It's under oath. It shouldn't matter, right?" So he's like, "Okay." So anyways, I get on the stand, and again, I can't talk about any of the threats. So that made my testimony really difficult and challenging. And during the prelim, the prosecutor picked out little bits and pieces of the interview, and it was pretty good. The sections that he chose, I would have preferred them, you know what, let's just waste the court's time, but let's let them see the whole thing, because it was a 2-hour long statement of this person reliving this experience. And there is absolutely no one in this world that could look at that video and say that any part of this is made up. Like, it was, you were taken into this moment, this horrible, horrible moment. And so plays it in court. The judge asks where she is. Brown says she's not here. Can't talk about the threats. And the judge ruled that, well, because she's not here, he can't attest to the reliability of this statement, this KGB statement we did. So it was sworn under oath, can't attest to the statement or to the credibility of the statement. And so therefore he can't allow it to go to trial. But then he says, but actually, hang on, there is medical records. I should also mention that Chantal has a little bit of a speech impediment. She didn't have a speech impediment before the assault. This is because of the brain damage that she received from the fractured skull. So in bits and pieces of the audio, was a little bit hard to hear in court. You could hear it, but you did have to pay attention. It wasn't the greatest audio system they had there by any means.
So what was the final judgment?
So the final judgment was that um, because because she couldn't be there, he couldn't take her testimony into account. And so then they just had to, so he said, but there is medical records, but one said that she had a fractured skull for whatever reason, another piece of the other one didn't. So he said, we'll just constitute that as a common assault. And so it can go to trial as just a common assault. So that's, like you look at this situation, you can just see like this one story in this one person's life that happened in, probably a 3-4 hour period highlights so many little flaws in our system and the vulnerable, and like especially the vulnerable people, like just everywhere, from not being able to get into the hospital from the back door to the cops initially pulling up beside and being like, what's up, and like she seemed uncooperative, sort of, and so but just wanted medical treatment. It was near death, to we didn't
Sorry.
get to lay those charges.
Some of our studio lights went out. Can you go trip the breaker back on? Yeah, like half of these
Okay.
lights went out for some. I don't know why. So, what the heck? Something weird happened.
Uh-oh.
Anyways.
Poltergeist.
Yeah. So, okay. So that was your first indication that something was really wrong with the system. Now,
Well, that wasn't my first indication. That wasn't my first.
Okay,
That was just
fair enough.
one of recent memory. Yeah.
So when did it start to become obvious that there was a need? Because like you're clearly a very you're very serious into harm reduction advocacy. You sit on the board for PHR, amongst other things. When did you start to realize that there was a need for this advocacy?
Yeah, that sort of happened like sort of closer to the end of my career in the drug unit in the organized crime section. There was like I made a lot of sacrifices when I was there. We were integrated with the RCMP, which gave us national coverage. We did things a lot differently then, as far as enforcement, and a lot of times it was, you not only take down your targets here, but you have to try to find out who their back end is, and you take them down as well. So I traveled quite a bit. Put a lot of hours in, a lot of complex investigations and unique techniques that gave me an incredible skill set that I carry forward today. But you couldn't help but think, well, wait a sec, there's more. Like I was there, I got to experience like the meth crisis from before it started to it being full blown. I got to experience the fentanyl crisis from before it even existed in Saskatoon to I probably held some of the first pills in my hand that even got here through an informant of mine. Mm-hmm. And it was like, you look back and you're like, what the, like, we did all that. And like, what was it? Like, the drugs got more dangerous, while I was working my bag off here. And, my colleagues and I are, doing some pretty risky stuff sometimes. And it's just like, for what? Like it's not working. We've created one of my presentations I often give is sort of breaking down the drug trade and treating it as if it's an economy. Like, forget that it's illegal. Let's just look at it as the economy of the drug trade. And it's like the most successful and most valuable, profitable system or commodity that's completely unregulated. And
so here's a question. So we're talking about the drug economy here in Saskatchewan. Now, is the justice system hindering it in any way at all?
Hindering the drug economy?
Yes.
Like, do you mean by like arresting people?
Yeah, like is arresting people and doing seizures and things like that. Like, is it putting a dent in this economy or no?
Oh no, it's allowing that economy to thrive like mm-hmm. no other. Like, I mean, it's literally, it's the best. If you put the brightest minds in the room and said, I want you to come up with a system that would make drugs more profitable. I don't think you could create a better system than this. And all of that
the
money is
justice
going
system.
into organized crime. Well, just in, yeah, basic, well, not just the justice, but I just mean like all the way drugs have been handled, right? Like, and then people forget, like, so many, like, so, you know, I hear friends and sometimes colleagues, not just in policing, friends and stuff in life too, people get nervous when they hear the words like systemic racism and stuff like that. And like, oh, systemic racism, there's no such thing as systemic racism. How can a system be racist? And you're just like, dude, we're literally enforcing some laws that we know were invented to kick a bunch of Japanese and Chinese settlers out of our country when they were done building a railroad. Like, they're still on the books. Like, that was why they were created. Like, you know, that was the first making opiates illegal, was to shut down the opium dens. Like there are actual laws that were created out of racism that we're still trying to like hodgepodge together and make work for our society now that's more forward thinking, but we're still basing it off of like, you know, some archaic principles and racist ideals.
So with knowing what you do about the justice system and about street culture and drug culture, have you ever been in a situation where you were inclined to like look the other way because you knew that perhaps arresting that person or whatever the case would bring more harm to that person than good?
All the time. All the time. No, and I strongly encourage it to my fellow police officers, man. Like, well, I'll tell you, one of the scariest things that I've started seeing, especially with like this whole like anti-police type of movement that's sort of, I think it started to die down now, hopefully, but it was pretty like, you know, abolish the police and like a bunch of nonsense like that.
Defund the police,
and
I remember that.
Yeah, defund the police and stuff, and obviously there's improvements that need to be made in policing, but I mean, getting rid of them completely is just asinine. And you live a pretty privileged little lifestyle if you don't think you need the police. But anyways, I digress, and completely forgot what the question is and where this started. What did you ask about again, Dan?
Just went down a rabbit hole, eh?
Yeah, oh yeah, that happens.
Look at Terry thought it was a good question.
Okay, must have been a good. Okay, you're on something about the justice system.
So here, okay, here you go.
Oh, turning the other way.
Yes, there we go.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where I was going with that is one of the scariest things during that anti kind of police defund movement was removing discretion from police officers. You want police officers to have discretion. You want them to have discretionary power where they can make choices in every situation, no matter what. And that as long as they can articulate it properly of why they did something and whatever, that there's no like legal consequence to the cop, or there's no like violation of a police act or something like that. Like, cops need to have discretion, because not every situation is the same. They're all different. The reason, you know, there might be a moment where, you know, this person, for their own safety and well-being, needs to be arrested for the drugs in their pocket because we don't have anything else, and they need to, because they're a complete chaos to themselves, and everyone else around is just a safer place for them to be, and maybe they'll get help. And I have had lots of I've had lots of friends, like people that are my friends now, who went to jail for drug possession, usually selling. Mostly, you don't really go to jail for drug possessions, but anyways, but for selling. But they were also users and came out saying like, that's what helped me turn my life around, you know? And so there is definitely the benefit there, but I think that's a pretty rare case, unfortunately. And yeah, more often than not, I mean, you see someone with some small amount of drugs in their pocket, you stumble across it for whatever reason, let them keep it. Because if this is a desperate person that just spent their entire day, you know, collecting cans or scraping together whatever they could to get that tiny little piece of joy that's in their pocket, It's all they have. You take it from them, they're just going to have to go and scrounge, break into your garage, break into your car, possibly, like, to get it again, you know?
Yeah.
And it
Donna's
goes around and around.
Donna's got a comment.
So I hope I'm not like moving the conversation too forward, but I'm just based on what you're saying right now, I'm kind of curious what your feelings are on the new BC regulations on decriminalization and personal possession.
Oh man, good question, Donna.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't put Donna's questions on the sheet that I sent to you earlier today. So
And
I don't even
and I
think you've
tend to
I don't
come
even
out of
think you've
left
asked
field.
me I don't even think you've asked me a single question from that sheet, and I'm cool with it.
well,
Um
okay.
let's yeah, uh what's happening in BC? Well, there's a few interesting things there. Look, it's kind of like safe consumption. Drug decriminalization is kind of like safe consumption sites. Uh, it's the absolute bare minimum in harm reduction that you can do that would reduce the harm in one person's life in that exact specific moment that they were using. That's how I equate. And yet the because it's the bare minimum, the results that we should expect, the positive benefits that we should expect should also fit in that realm, understanding that this is like, we're not like reinventing some magical like new policy, a new system, putting it in place that's just going to have all this incredible societal impacts from it. Like, this is literally the bare minimum.
Yeah, it's not harm elimination, it's harm reduction.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And this is like literally like the most like basic level you can do. And so, do I support drug decriminalization? Yeah, I mean, of course I do. Sadly, I think BC is, they're not going to see much benefit because, quite frankly, drugs have been decriminalized, in my opinion, simple possession, for a long time. Like, you haven't been going to jail for simple possession. Yeah, there are, like, you might still get your product seized by the cops, but no charge laid or something like that. And I suppose their new legislation stops that from being able to happen. But it's not going to create like, it's not going to have a massive impact. It's going to be kind of like when weed was legalized, everyone thought like hell was going to rain from the sky, and like nothing happened. So, like, nothing negative, I should say. And so I think that's what we're going to see there. It would be nice if they actually, instead of just doing, like, there was a team and a bunch of organizations in British Columbia that put forward an incredible plan for a rollout of drug decriminalization that would have actually had a lot more benefits. And that's not the plan that's taking place there. It kind of, once it goes through the government sort of system or whatever, whoever actually is rolling it out, I know that it's not the actual plan that those organizations put forward, unfortunately, because that would have had a lot more benefit, but probably also came with some cost because there was some harm reduction and forward-thinking initiatives included that maybe didn't want to get funded or something. I don't know.
So, do you think that the criminalization of substances, and perhaps maybe on a larger scale, like, I mean, you just mentioned it's sort of like a de facto law out there already where very small amounts don't get confiscated, but do you think that the ongoing criminalization of these substances is making work environments for service providers like yourself more dangerous?
Oh, without a doubt. And like myself, I mean, I'm a carpet cop. Like, I sit in my desk and the files come to me, and then I go out and interview people and stuff, as far as I hit the seat or visit a crime scene that's already, you know, barricaded off and has all my friends in blue there. But for our very, very front line, like the patrol people rolling around, yeah, it's way more dangerous. Paramedics, firefighters, service providers, you know, even, you know, harm reduction or prairie harm reduction. I had a file the other day where there was a shooting that happened right at the building site when they were closed. And I was able to grab their video surveillance and look through it, and it was like an accidental discharge, but somebody there had a little sawed-off gun in their backpack, and as they pulled it out, they accidentally shot someone in the leg with it. And so like you're seeing, you know, I've like what happens when a drug supply becomes so cheap like it is now is suddenly everyone can afford to become a drug dealer. And so that's what we saw with like with meth and stuff. Like we're talking like $5 points, which is like 1/10 of a gram now. Whereas that used to be like 20 or 30 bucks back in the day.
It was
And
10
so
bucks. It was $10 back in my day
$10
for a point. Yeah.
for a point.
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap. That
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago though.
Yeah. Well, I knew people, you know how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, even so, like, cause
They
it
like
used to be
Dan's
like, it used to
copper.
be,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, and you were a copper pipe guy,
I
weren't you?
was. Yeah.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
probably
I actually,
burning all kinds of rubber in your backyard.
I actually made the news one night. The cop plane caught me burning wiring harnesses out in the field, and like I made the newspaper. My mom clipped it out, and like I look at it once in a while, and you know, sort of reflect on that night. Like I looked up and I
Oh,
saw the
yeah.
plane. I'm like, I'm fucked. I'm fucked.
I should
just
have
like
known.
you
I can't
probably-
believe I haven't put it 2 and 2 together. Of course you were a
Yeah.
copper wire guy, Dan.
Yeah,
Of course you
I was, yeah, through and through. You're losing your mind laughing. So, anyways, now that we've gone down that rabbit hole, where were we? I forget.
were.
You also
Criminalization.
forget.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I guess, like the a rollout of the BC.
Well, we were talking
guidelines,
about
and
that,
so
but we were talking about
moved
making
away.
we were talking about the making the workplace
Oh,
more
that's
dangerous.
That's right. And so what happens with cheap drug supply is when everyone can become a drug dealer, like all of the same systems involved in dealing drugs, like all the business side, the gangs, the guns, the needing to protect your supply, needing to like take ownership over a client base, all of that stuff that used to only exist kind of higher up in the drug trade with the more like entrepreneurial type drug traffickers. Well, now that's down at the bottom with like as low as like the 14, 15-year-olds, like, you know, they're needing guns now. They're needing stuff to protect their little, you know, $40, $50, $100 investment into their little drug business. And so then that alone becomes more dangerous, and that increases massive amounts of violence in the community. People don't like that. That's not a narrative that I've heard really talked about anywhere. Like again, looking at like an economy, the price of the substance really does play a factor in the community impact.
So, where can we go from there? We've got a comment here, Des Towns, and I don't know what PHP means. Improper education at PHP treatment level for addicts and drug dealers who use treatments as an escape of jail sentences is no longer useful because the drugs aren't the same as, and they're still being treated as it was the same back in the 70s and 80s. It is no longer working.
Yeah, that's could be accurate.
So when you you touched a little bit on this already, but I want to sort of unpack it a little bit more because I've had a few conversations about the rollout of the legalization of marijuana. Have you seen it? Have you seen any sort of shift in the illicit marijuana economy since its legalization, like for better or for worse?
Well, I mean, let's think about this for a second, right? We've got a substance that its benefits are known to help people sleep and reduce pain. Cops are real shitty sleepers and have bad backs from the heavy belts they wear. So I know that there's been some positive benefits in a lot of lives.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's not necessarily what I mean. And I remember the last time I had you on the show, you just straight up admitted that you smoked, and that blew me away because I wasn't expecting you to say that at all. It kind of took me back. But that's not what I. No, well, it doesn't now because I know, but that's not really like. I mean, in the economy of it, like,
I see.
Did the safer supply of marijuana displace the illicit supply?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yeah, it did. So the way that I've watched it work, I was paying close attention to how this is going to happen, right? And there's a lot of people that will be might disagree with some of what I said here, and they might be right and I could be wrong, who knows. But just from my own experience and perspective, what I saw is the price drop, the street price drop so dramatically that the profits would have just shrunk. Because again, I look at this like an economy, right? So like there was a time where for like premium Kush back in the day, it would be like 3,500 or $4,000 a pound for like premium BC Kush or something that they'd be supplying to the street. You'd be lucky to sell a pound for $1,000, I think, now on the street. So you're still, your input costs are still the same, right? If you're the entrepreneur and that's your business, and you just had something where you were making $4,000 before and now you're making one, your input costs are the exact same. And so what ended up happening is there was a massive shift into online sales specific to edibles. And so just for the harm reductionist in me, for your listeners that may consume cannabis products, make sure you're getting it from either yourself if you grow it or whatever, or a friend that's growing it, because you can do that as well. Obviously is the by far the best. But if you're going to be buying, make sure you're buying and supporting from an actual local store that has a government issued supply. And definitely when it comes down to edibles, because a lot of the edibles that are produced, like that are being mass produced by the same sort of org crime groups that were selling like the weed before, they're just spraying with like a THC distillate on the outside. It's not like it's actually like a gummy that's been made nice and it's got all the goodness cooked right into it. It's just like sprayed.
All the goodness. So and to add to that, like, have you seen any discernible reduction in the burden on the justice system since the legalization?
That would be tough to measure. I mean, there wouldn't be any, there'd be a lot fewer cannabis traffickers, I guess, going through the justice system. But even when I was in the drug unit back in the day, I said you could make this unit as big as you wanted, and the workload would never change because there's just so much supply. Like you could, like that's kind of the other side of this whole, like, I mean, I can't even believe in 2023 we're even still having this argument that the war on drugs is the way to go, and that we're still even arresting. We haven't figured out a better way to do this, because it is just we weren't even doing that right. Like they could only afford to, like, trust me, I'm a tenacious cop. Like, I love policing. I don't care what unit and what my task is. I love it. It's a phenomenal job. I love every part of it. And so when I was in charge of a file, and I would always hit a ceiling, every time. It was like, I know there's another bump I can do here. There's another level to go. There's this person that's laundering millions. No, we can't afford for you to go after them. So, I mean, even the war on drugs, there's a cost, right? The policing is expensive.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost as though the system is made to go after the low end.
It's 100%, dude. 100%. Which could, imagine that right there. So you're actually selling more product. Like, if you're the entrepreneur that can never be touched at the top of this pyramid scheme, and not only are your customers using your product, but there's also these massively funded organizations that are coming through, taking your product and throw it in the garbage, and then your customer has to then go buy another one. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, like, Tabasco sauce?
Yeah.
There was this young entrepreneur years ago that approached the company. It's like a family-owned business that owns Tabasco. It starts to like Muck something. Can't remember what it's called, like a Scottish company or something. McKinley or McKinnon or something. And there's this young entrepreneur that went there one time and said, if I could double your profits, but I'm not going to tell you how, would you give me a portion of them? And they're like, double our profits. They're like, mm-hmm. Yep. So they signed like agreements and everything to make sure this happened. You know what he did?
What did he do?
Made the hole twice as big. It's a true story.
That's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Barb's chiming in here, and she's asking, oh, hey Barb, by the way, good to see you. Barb says, so you can be too big to fail. in the alternative market to the alternative. I think that's like the illicit market. Is that accurate? Whatever. You press the button
Too
so
big
that
to
everyone
fail.
can hear your
I
cynicism
wouldn't get into any sort of debate with Barb over language.
over semantics.
Well, Barb F, everyone knows who Barb F is. No, we're
Yeah.
not touching Barb F. She's
Yeah.
She will melt your brain with
yeah.
philosophy.
She'll
Yeah.
start
Just
she'll
shows
start
how-
using some words that none of us understand.
Yeah. Barb is our very dear researcher and faculty member and university professor friend that is a dear friend of Hard Knocks Talks. So we
And
like
of Matt
to,
Ingrouille.
of course, we like to poke her in the ribs a little bit. So, oh man. So what are your thoughts on safe supply? You know, there's a lot of advocates out in the world that are pushing for an unfettered access. Like, you know, you should be able to go to the liquor store and get a gram of fentanyl along with your Mickey of vodka. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's crazy people on the side of every discussion, right?
Did you
There's
just call
always
them? They're crazy. Is that what you
yeah.
just said?
There's extreme. I'll call them extremists. Sorry, let's
There
call
we
them
go.
extremists.
There we go.
There's
Yeah.
there's extremists to every discussion.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, I think there's been people over the years that have put me into that category, thinking that I'm out to lunch and stuff. Where it's I
Mhm.
follow the research and see if it marries up with my experience that I'm seeing out there. And so, what do I believe in safe supply? 100%. We need a safe supply, because that, when you talk about the economy of the drug trade, because like I look at this from a community level. I'm looking at a change in drug policy from a policing lens, not from a let's go out there and hug, you know, drug users lens. Although I'm completely also on the understanding that clearly most addiction is a symptom of trauma or mental health or something, a combination of the two. And so I get that aspect as well. But my focus and my area of expertise and what I care about is community safety. And so when you have this system that is you know, this organized crime system where we're giving literally millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to organized crime groups, that now we know a lot of that money too is going overseas, where they're creating literally billions of dollars a year off of the drug economy in Canada, and then that money is going overseas.
When you say we're giving this money, who's we? Who are you talking about?
Well, us, like society, like we all
our
are.
communities.
Like
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like this,
Yeah.
the system that we've designed here is doing that. So when you're thinking, when I'm thinking safe supply, what I'm thinking is all that chaos that I'm used to seeing that drug user, I don't care what background that drug user comes from, whether why they're using, but if that drug user is having to get their substance and they're addicted to something that's illegal, they're having to interact with drug dealers, and they're not nice people to deal with. There's, I mean, some are, but the vast majority at the street level aren't, because they're also desperate and using themselves. They've got gangs that they got to deal with. They got all that shit. They've got the police, the costs associated to that. We've got the overdose crisis, the costs associated to that. We've got all this mass justice system, all this stuff that we've talked about. And we replace it with someone can just walk into their doctor's office. And that's what I look at it as. You know, we've had, if we want to talk about the medical model, I mean, they've had drug addiction in the DSMV now for quite a few number of years.
I believe it's 1958. I might be wrong, but I know it's around.
I thought
there
it was more recent. You might be right. I thought it was more recent, but maybe not. And so you look at like the way that our community currently deals with every other mental health issue, whether you're bipolar, schizophrenic, you're having an episode, you're not, but you're struggling, you're suicidal. The way that we deal with it in our current health structure is we medicate with medication. We medicate that person to try to stabilize them. And we use the term stabilize them in the community, because we closed down all of our mental health facilities where we used to just lock people up, and decided, no, community treatment's the way to go. So, okay, we're going to treat them in the community with medication. And then maybe there'll be some outpatient reach. They'll have some services and access, blah, blah, blah. That's how we treat every mental health illness, except for when it comes to drugs or an addiction. So, like, why? Like, you know, we with the framework already is the framework's there. Not only is a framework there, but CRISM, the Canadian Research Initiative of Substance Misuse, I think it was in 2017, 2018, they created an actual prescription framework so that doctors could legally, and they can legally now, prescribe injectable drugs to a user, and it's totally fine. But the problem is the shifting from the justice to health.
Mm-hmm.
And when our medical field isn't prepared to accept you know, that new set of clientele, if you want to call it that, or accept those people over to their system, and they've actually built a framework and they're prepared to use this framework to help those people, then that's where we're at right now, where it's like people are getting angry that the police are still dealing with it. Then you have people saying, well, we want it to move to health, but then you have right now in medical school, the only time that a doctor learns about addiction medicine in their entire degree program and even in their doctorate is as an elective in one class if they choose. So it's so far from, we're so far from even like teaching our medical professionals about addiction medicine and how to prescribe this so that we can take all of those millions of dollars of profit that we're giving to, you know, organized crime groups and use it to fund our healthcare system.
So what do you think is at the very root of all of this ignorance, both in the justice system and in the medical system? Why is it so hard to make that switch?
Public systems, man. Public systems are archaic. They're slow to change. They're, you know, you look at if you were to just compare, we have a private system and we have a public system. The private system, they are looking at solving our energy crisis with nuclear fusion by 2028. It's looking like that's going to be tapping into the grid. We've got artificial intelligence launching out at a speed that's just blown everybody's mind at the capabilities. We're going to be completely redesigning.
AI blew my mind a couple, like last week. I found Chat GPT.
Oh, dude, I've been on Chat GPT since it launched every day. It is
scary.
I love it. Oh,
it's great. Like you can have a conversation. Well, okay,
excellent.
It's scary for how smart it is. I think. Like it doesn't say scary things to me, but
yeah. I
know?
mean, it can be used for evil, but more people use it for good, and it will balance out like every technology does. But you know, you look at those incredible advancements that have happened on our private side of things, and then you walk over here, and it's just like, okay, blow the dust off of the dinosaur system over here, and there's no innovation. Innovation's not encouraged. Risk takers are not encouraged. Doing things differently is not encouraged.
But why? Like we know sort of these things aren't encouraged, but let's dig deeper than that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you why I think it is. You've got on the private side, doesn't matter what your business is, you're making or selling widgets. I don't care. It's
What's
a widget.
What's a widget?
Well, it's just a thing. It's just like a thing of you're making widgets or you're selling widgets on the private side, right? Doesn't matter what business you're in. That's how you generate money. You're buying and selling stuff. You're making something, you're selling it, right? And so if there's a human being tied to the success of this, like your company is tied to an individual, right? Maybe the CEO of the company, for example. Okay, the CEO, if we made 100 widgets this year, we need to make 101 widgets next year, or else I'm out of a job or I'm not going to get my bonus. So then all of a sudden this young, tenacious employee comes up the ranks, and she's figured out how to make widgets like double what everyone else is making. Oh, we need that person into management immediately because we want them to train everyone else how to make widgets twice as fast, and our company grows and everyone's profitable, everyone's celebrating the innovation. That doesn't happen. There's no widgets over on the public side. There should be. The public should be holding it accountable, but it's not cash. and it's not people's livelihood tied to it. It's not my investment in my retirement fund tied to it. It's my physical health. It's my community safety. We should hold it to the same standard, and it should move as fast, but just by design, it just can't.
I worked for one, sorry to cut you off, Dan, and to just like jump in here, but sometimes that's necessary.
It's true. It's true.
I worked for one community organization, or not community organization, sorry, it was government, and I won't mention which organization, but, you know, it was a common sentiment among the staff that, what the fuck do I care? They're not going to fire me. I'd pretty much have to shoot somebody in the face to get fired. And the work environment was so toxic and nobody gave a shit. And I got to tell you, this was part of the judicial system. Again, that's as far as I'm going to identify, though.
So it's
not just there. It's not just justice. Like I've got friends in every system, in every public system, and when we get together, you think it's unique to your own workplace. You think you're just like, oh, this is so frustrating that we can't get this done, and we're fighting against this wall just to be able to do my job. And it's not. It's happening in health. It's happening in education. It's happening in academia. It's happening in justice. It's the public. Our public institutions are not incentivized to innovate. And then what really blew my mind is when I hopped on board with when initially Prairie Harm Reduction was AIDS Saskatoon. We had Jason McCurdy in there with Kayla, who's our current executive director, but she was a director at the time. And I saw these young, innovative people that had this peanut budget, and they were moving mountains with it. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, there's government funding going into these organizations, but why is this able to move? Why were we able to open, a safe consumption site in a city that is, pretty right leaning and sort of scared of, some of this stuff? How were we able to kind of do that in such a quick period of time and get public on board and kind of launch these initiatives? Well, it's because our funding depends on this success. Our donations are encouraging us to act. So there is a financial aspect. You've got a board of directors that is being like, hey, this is what we want our executive directors doing. Get out there and let's do it. And so you just see this huge innovation coming out of all of these amazing, tiny community-based organizations. So, I mean, if anyone is looking at where to send their money to, find a community organization that is doing something that you care about and give your money to them. It stays in Saskatoon. It stays in your community. There's so many. You get Choke Cherry Studios, the amazing work that those young people are doing with their organization. I mean, that was a bunch of teenagers that started that, and now it's an incredible support system to so many youth in our core neighborhoods.
And these organizations, they're much more nimble, right? Like they don't got the
nimble.
They don't have the giant machine on their back. But where do you think stigma plays into this resistance? Like, of course, this machine that we call a system is giant and slow moving and nobody gives a shit. But at the root of it somewhere, there's someone that can make a decision to bring change. Why aren't they doing that?
Because the system is designed so that those people that would do that can't make it there or get burnt out trying, and they quit and they leave. It's just the reality. And I mean, if there are senior managers of an organization listening to what I just said there and taking offense to it, then you're that person. Everyone else in your organization is talking about it. Everyone else is saying like why is somebody who did nothing for their entire career able to move so much faster than people that have been putting their blood, sweat, and tears into places, especially up to the senior ranks, at least when it comes to policing. I'm not slagging on my service by any means. We have phenomenal managers at the very top, actually. But it is evolving, and more of them are getting in there, getting up there in these organizations, but it's not an organization. None of our public institutions are really rewarding that widget maker, the person who's doubling up on the widgets. In fact, that makes them nervous, because what usually happens is the person on the public side that's making the widget, so in my case, maybe solving crime, or maybe like in the drug unit, getting the most drugs off the street, getting the most guns off the street. If you're in health, maybe, if you're a nurse and you're, the way that you deal with your patients is like next level. You're forming these incredible relationships and helping them deal with the medical trauma that they're going through. If you're a teacher that's doing those extra things, coaching and really becoming, a role model and someone that these children can aspire to be like and look up to. Those individuals are not then plucked and said from the organization, said, whoa, you're the ones that we need over here, like it is on the private side. Instead, it's like, whoa,
this person has more seniority than you, so sorry, keep trying.
that sometimes plays a factor, but I think it's more of just it's people that try more could on a very surface appearance level could look scary, like they're risk takers, or like they're trying to push the status quo too much or something like that, instead of embracing what that could be, and like embracing these people within your organization and be like, we need to encourage this type of behavior. We need to support these people at driving more. And that is happening. I'm not saying it's not happening. I mean, I've watched an incredible evolution happen. So I'm not saying it's not happening, but you can't say that we have the nuclear fusion and artificial intelligence version of our public systems. We just don't.
So let's take we've looked outward from a service provider's perspective, outward into the community. Let's have a look inward into the system. So what have you ever seen colleagues fall victim to the system they serve as a result of their own substance use challenges?
As a result of their own substance use challenges?
Yeah.
There's sort of that there's sort of that old, I don't know if it's like movie sort of detective, that grizzly old cop there that's just working his ass off, and he's got the bottle in his desk that he's pounding back at the end of shift. I can understand where that caricature comes from, especially for people that are really giving it, whatever area that you work in. If you are really giving it your all, and then you've got all this internal or ethical dilemmas that are happening at the same time, I can definitely see where somebody that didn't have a healthy support system or outlets could fall victim of substance use, or misuse, just like anyone could. I haven't personally seen a friend become an alcoholic or start using drugs to a level that's dangerous, or I haven't seen that personally specific to substance use, but I've seen really good cops leave and quit, and people that I would like to work, wish they were still around, that just couldn't do it anymore, or retired early. A lot of people retire early, the good people, because they've done it and they're tired. And I get it. I'll probably be one.
Is it because the work is hard, or is it because of the frustration that they are not allowed to do it better?
It's both, right? It's that story of Chantel that I told at the start, right? It's seeing that every day over and over and over again. It's any first responder is dealing with trauma. You're taking on other people's trauma, whether you're a social worker, and you're having to displace a family, whether you are a counselor and you're trying to help people process their trauma. You're still listening, you're still taking that in yourself, and being traumatized to a certain extent yourself. And so that there's the nature of the job too, but the most frustrating things, honestly, it's the systemic flaws when you start recognizing them, because then you're just like, oh man, this could be so much better if just A, B, or C could happen. And then you around the coffee table, everyone is saying that, and it's like, well, if we're all saying that, why can't it happen? And then that's where I started analyzing, like, why can't it happen? And then you start seeing, well, kind of the design and the way that we're not manufacturing widgets. It's a very, very public systems are very, very slow by design to change. And it's not because anyone's like evil and being like, oh, we don't want this to get better. It's just the design of it is just not exactly innovative.
Yeah. So we've identified a plethora of problems this evening. We're coming to the end. In fact, we're over time, but we're going to roll with it. What can we do? You said you've dug into it. You've done some investigating. You are an advocate ferociously to the very core of who you are, as far as I can tell. What can we do as a community to help move some solutions forward, move some solutions into the public eye, where the voters are, where we can maybe sway public opinion enough to win a couple votes, other than doing Hard Knocks talks, because it's amazing.
Definitely do Hard Knocks talks any chance you can get. There's no doubt about that. Listen to it every day and all day. What can you do? You can support community-based organizations. That's a huge one. Volunteer in your community. Like, it really.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you right there. Hard Knocks Talks would not be what it is without the support of the community-based organizations in this community.
No, that's awesome.
End of story.
Yeah.
That is it. If I was turning to the government for funding to do what I do, to do what we do on this level, we would not be doing it anymore.
No. Well, nor I don't know if the government would be an arm to fund you, but private sponsors for sure, maybe. You could see in the future, right? Get your followers up and stuff. But yeah, so what can we do? Like, supporting community, like, communities are built through contribution. Our systems change through contribution. So if you can donate time. If you can donate cash, donate cash. If you can, if you're passionate about something, talk about that passion. Encourage, if you're a manager within an organization and you see a unicorn in there, embrace that person and help mold them. Now that I've got 17 years in, it seems crazy to say because it feels like I just got there yesterday in policing. When I look around and I see, or I read a file, or I get a file and I just saw that there was some young, fairly new patrol cop that just went above and beyond in a witness statement or whatever, I find that person, I send them an email, I see them in the halls, and like, that was such a great job you did. And we just really compliment their skill set and just really empower the people below you. I try not to complain down, and within an organization, I got this lesson from, Paul Pitzel's never going to listen to this, but kind of a mentor of mine at work to an extent was my sergeant for a while, and I was fortunate enough to work with him, a man of wisdom who's been around for a long time, and he said, you complain up, you don't complain down. It's our job as senior employees in an organization to protect the bottom from the top, and just encourage that bottom, let them grow. We'll bear the brunt of the bitterness, and try to push this change, if we're passionate about it, up. But let's really embrace and not try to spread that toxic narrative down.
Well, my son's coming into the studio. That must mean it's time to shut it down. He knows what time it is. So, okay, Matt, for anybody who's watching this live, stick around after the closer. We're going to spin the wheel and give some stuff away. If you're listening to the recordings, then you should come and listen to the live sometimes. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for bringing your expertise to the community and sharing some stories with us. And we'll let you go, my friend. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right, if you like if you're getting something out of what we're doing here, you can find us on all audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or live and interactive, right here on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch TV. Thanks for watching. Take care, everyone. Good night. Okay, this is Hard Knocks Talks. All right, here comes the wheel. Oh, don't scroll the wheel. Put it back down. Oh, Donna doesn't know how to put it back down. Hang on. You got it. Yay, got it. All right, I hope we got everyone on the wheel. It's time to spin the wheel, my love. Give her a spin. Giving away a couple of books tonight. Who's it gonna be? Kristen on YouTube. I hope you know who that is. All right, Kristen on YouTube. I trust that Donna has your name, and we will reach out to you. I don't know how. Find us on, if we don't reach out to you, come find us on Facebook. Come put your, give us a message in the DMs, and we will get you your books. And that's it for now, everybody. Thanks so much. Take care. We will see you next time on Hard Knocks